In this video, we'll be talking about competent advisor status, also known as CAS. As previously mentioned, CAS is an abbreviation for competent advisor status, which is a term regularly used in the financial services industry to describe an advisor who can provide advice without the need for it to be checked over by a manager or mentor. Simply Academy, a leading financial training provider, define CAS as deeming the advisor competent to provide sound advice without requiring supervision. If you're looking to obtain CAS specifically for mortgage and protection advice, you typically will need 2 to 5 cases signed off in both mortgage advice and protection advice. If you're looking to obtain CAS specifically for financial advice, you typically need 2 to 5 cases in the key 3 areas of being a financial advisor. So that's investments, pensions and protection. However, this can vary from company to company, as some would rather you specialise in a certain area. So a question we often get asked is, why do you need to obtain CAS? Well, to provide financial services advice in the UK, it is often a requirement for you to obtain CAS. If not, all of your cases will need to be checked, either by in-house compliance, a business quality assessor, or a senior advisor before they can be provided to the client. Now, there are some companies out there that don't sign their advisors off with CAS. All of their cases will be checked, and that is their model. But more often than not, businesses do look to sign their advisors off with CAS because it's recognition that they can provide compliant advice that's appropriate to the client. But also it helps streamline the processes because you can get the advice given to the client much quicker rather than having to go through 100% file checking. Also, the benefit of getting CAS is it can really help you in your future job searches. So particularly if you wanted to become home-based or self-employed in the future, these will much more often need CAS status because it's recognition that you have been able to provide compliant advice. And typically there'll be less training requirements compared to someone joining the business who is non-CAS. Also, it can be a requirement for certain companies that they do look for individuals to have current or recent CAS as well. So having it in your current role can help your future job prospect. Another important question we often get asked is, how long will it take for me to obtain CAS? Now, if I'm being truthful with you, it's a really difficult question to answer because there's just so many variables that go into it and I can't give you a clear-cut answer. So please don't take this as gospel. But in a recent poll we undertook on our company LinkedIn account for Premier Jobs UK, 83% of the respondents said that they took 5 to 8 cases to achieve CAS, with the remaining 17% saying it took them between 9 to 12. Although this is where it becomes really tricky, as I mentioned, there are a lot of variables, so that could depend on whether it's a full-time or part-time role, your prior industry knowledge, whether you're a trainee or not, if you've previously held CAS, in terms of whether you're from a tied background or from whole of market mortgage advice. But also it can be down to how easy is it for you to provide advice on those cases. So if you're in a role where you're having to purely self-generate, it may take you longer to get to that 5 to 8. Whereas if you're in a company that's actively providing you those leads, you might be able to get to that point much quicker. So there are a lot of variables. If you want a specific answer, then what I recommend is probably get in touch with me and I can listen to your certain requirements and your circumstances, and I'll be able to give you a bit more of a defined answer for you. So another important question is, how do I get CAS? And I don't want to repeat myself, but it is a tricky question to also answer because it does vary from company to company, as everyone will have their own compliance guidelines and policies. However, we did draw up a shortlist for our recent blog that includes a number of key trends we see in the CAS requirements. So these include your grammar, punctuation, spelling, effectively following the compliance guidelines for the company, your knowledge, and also your analytical skills. We do provide a more extensive list in our recent blog, which you can click and read up here if you are interested. But what I'd recommend is, if you're currently working with your company and looking to obtain CAS, is definitely ask for their policy on what is required to sign off cases as a good advice, because you can work towards those specific requirements and that will speed up you getting that CAS status. So finally, I wanted to give you some tips for getting CAS. So as a company, some advice we could give to you to obtain CAS is really know your company's processes. So I mentioned this before, but definitely ask to see a copy of the CAS checklist requirements or your compliance guidelines, because there will be differences from company to company. So if you're new into the industry, it's really important you familiarise yourself with that. But if you're moving from one company to another, don't presume the CAS requirement will be exactly the same. There could be some differences, and so it's really important you appreciate that and work towards your new set of guidelines. Also, as a tip could be, is to speak to the manager or mentor and ask for their own tips, because ultimately they will be someone who will be looking over your cases. And so it's better to hear it from them in advance than have to learn the hard way. Another tip could be to speak to colleagues. They naturally will have had to have gone through that step of obtaining CAS within your company, and they could give you some invaluable tips. And that could help also your personal development and your professional development. So do utilise your internal resources. Another thing would be for you to create your own checklist. If that's one of your learning styles and what benefits to you, would be put yourself in the shoes of the person that will be marking your cases and reviewing them against the checklist. What things will they pick up on? Whether that's spelling, grammar, punctuation, asking the right questions and staying compliant are all crucial for pushing you towards that competent advisor status. So if you're checking your own cases for those elements, you could potentially pick up on some areas that need tweaks prior to it being reviewed by the compliance team or your manager. Another thing in line with that previous tip is do double check and triple check cases, especially when you're in that period of 100% file checking. You want to make sure you're getting through into CAS status as quickly as possible. But it's about creating habits as well, because once you obtain CAS, it's not that you can go off and do your own thing and bend the rules. You still need to be 100% focused on providing compliant advice. And so double checking and triple checking early on will create really good habits that will stay with you throughout your time as an advisor, that you're always keeping that eye for detail. And some final advice is also to be patient with it. If your desire is to get into the industry, whether that be a mortgage advisor or financial advisor, you've done the hard work of obtaining your qualification, you've successfully achieved that first role that you really wanted, is don't go and waste it by rushing to get CAS too quickly. You've achieved what you wanted to, and that is be an advisor. Whether you have CAS or not, you are still an advisor. So be patient with it, and it will come. You don't want to rush it, like I said, and actually use it as a learning opportunity. You're having 100% file checking from your manager or mentor or from the compliance team. Take as much advice on as possible, because that's only going to benefit you in the long term. Final thing is to remember to subscribe to this channel and make sure you click the bell icon below so that you're always up to date with our latest videos that we create. We're really focused on trying to create content that is beneficial to you, whether that's about qualifications, the financial services industry itself, and also the market, because we feel as a recruiter, giving you as much advice and guidance as possible is going to help you in your own career, and that's something we really value and receive a lot of satisfaction from. And also, if you've got any recommendations for type of content you want to see, feel free to drop it in the comments. We do read every one, and we do look to respond to as many as possible, so that will be mostly appreciated. So thank you for listening, and hopefully you see some more videos coming soon that are relevant to you.